time opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
It's the song you love. It's the song you know. It's the movie that if you haven't seen now, stop, because this is going to be spoiler filled, and you've had 30 years to catch up.
Seriously.
Only 30.
Oh my goodness.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
With the song, obviously we are doing Ghostbusters, celebrating the 30th anniversary of the movie here at Anatomy of a Movie. And I got to say, I got to see it in the theater for the very first time, and it was even better.
Yeah.
Yes, I myself as well. And, you know, because we had the opportunity to see it on the big screen, and I was like, I wasn't around the first time when that happened, so I jumped on that opportunity, and I really enjoyed it, and I can see why people loved it back in that time.
Yeah, I had seen it in the theaters back in that time, but I hadn't seen it in the theater since '84. And in '84, I'd seen it a couple of times, but it was great seeing it on the big screen again. I've had it on Blu-ray DVD. That's another movie that I've double dipped in, since we were talking about that at lunch. And yeah, for me, the nostalgia factor, the memory factor, it all came flooding back. Yeah. And you can attest, this movie holds up, and this movie is a comedy. And you know, I want to get this off the table right now. Ghostbusters is not a family film. Just because it's PG, the cartoon, yes, the kids can watch the cartoon, but any family film that showcases a corporeal being giving a blowjob to one of your main characters, not a family film, unless you're just whack. You know, any family film that suggests to take care of the marshmallow, Mr. Stay Puft, because he's a sailor, let's get him laid in New York. That's not a family film, folks. This movie was a comedy for a broad audience. It wanted adults to go, dates to go, and teenagers like me, to get this humor. You know, it is a good broad comedy. That's not rated R. It happened to be PG, but PG has changed in the years.
Significantly.
And, you know, and that's what I think makes Ghostbusters, even today, comedy is still relevant, and you have great actors who are in it as well. Yeah. Classic.
And we talked. There's going to be some crossover between this and the Harold Ramis tribute that we did. So if that's of interest, definitely, you know, just look it up on our YouTube channel, our website, wherever you are, or just straight up on iTunes and listen to that, because you know, I think it's fitting.
Sure.
And I think we did a pretty good job with that.
It was a really good time too. Yeah, you know, all things considered, it was a good show.
Yeah. And so I actually saw it out of sequence when I first saw it as a wee lad. I saw 2 before 1. So for me, I never got the experience of seeing 1 then 2. But at the movie theater, I gotta say, it really enjoyed it, and I can't say enough. And even though the version I saw, you could definitely tell the film grain and things like that. Like, you knew, and the saturation wasn't as high as like most of the new movies.
Sure.
But you know what? It's just one thing that surpasses all that crap.
Absolutely.
Comedy and story.
Yep.
And the thing is, watching it again now, being older, that like I have a deeper appreciation for the comedy and the writing that was involved. There were a lot of jokes that I easily missed the first time, and then, hey, that was actually really funny. And I can understand why people quote this film so much.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the comedy comes not necessarily from the jokes, but from the lines, from the dialogue, that at times are played very matter-of-factly by Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis, and even Winston Zeddemore. But everybody, William Atherton has his lines. I mean,
Even Rick, I mean, he's
Rick
just
Rick
such a little
Moranis.
shitbag running around like, yeah, so, I always got that water, so, but you already know that.
You already know that. So, no, it was a comedy. It's the type of comedy that they don't necessarily do today. The movie had its gags, but it didn't rely on gags to make you laugh. Bill Murray. It relied on character and dialogue, and sometimes something as simple as it was just the way in which something was said. Like the great scene when they're all in the elevator together, and they're like going, "Wow, these packs haven't been tested before. Oh, that's good to know, knowing that we're all carrying illegal nuclear particle matters on our back right now." And it's just the way Murray can deliver a line that makes it funny. I mean, it's not a joke per se,
but it's also
funny.
If we're talking about that scene in particular, the distribution of jokes. So Bill kind of opens up and he's, he does the linchpin. Then it's like, okay, Dan says, all right, power me up, might as well be ready.
Right.
And just Harold like,
Yeah, they all walk.
but it's great because he's the one that really kind of made this. I blame myself.
I blame myself. Yeah, I know. And again, it's that it had this throwback Marx Brothers, Three Stooges. I mean, Dan Aykroyd, if you watch him, he does, like, without doing the, he does the curly, like, run fast, stop short. It has all this kind of physical humor as well. And it holds up today. And watching it again on the big screen with the new soundtrack and everything, it's just so much fun. So much fun. And it made me appreciate, again, like, that we call it old school filmmaking today. Still beats a lot of the stuff that we see today with all the new technologies that are out there. Some of the movies are great, but I loved how Reitman shot this on a set, practical effects for the most part. Digital was just sort of it was almost like the birth, but it didn't have to rely on that.
Yeah.
So,
Marissa?
Oh, no, I completely agree. Dimitri said about everything. The thing that I loved watching it again is just that how funny it is every single time. I mean, you can watch it a million times, but it's still relevant to today's society. There's like the politics involved that people can still relate to, and then just like your annoying neighbors. Just the great thing about the chemistry between all the guys, they're regular like Joe Schmoes, and like you can relate to them. They're just trying to make a living in the world, but they're having fun with it too. And that's what is appealing to I think a lot of the audience members, because they're just regular guys who are just having fun.
Sure.
Not really literally going guns a-blazing, not really knowing what they're doing. And that's the fun part about it.
Totally not knowing what they're doing.
Yeah. What I like about it too is, I mean, this is at right around, I don't know exactly when the full shift can, you can say that happened, but I mean, this is basically a movie writing room, right? Whereas you have all these TV writing rooms. You used to have that for movies, and it really shows, and that's why, in the time frame that it is, it's so efficient. Obviously, you have great people to portray it, but the writing is so on point where now, a lot of that has gone to TV, and you'll have one or maybe two writers for a movie.
Sure. And I call Ghostbusters the type of movie that's lightning in a bottle. There are many factors, some of them tragic, that happened that would have changed the complexion of the movie. Dan Aykroyd had come up with the story, and it was originally supposed to be a movie for he and his very good comedic partner, John Belushi. Tragically, John Belushi passes away. Eddie Murphy was supposed to be in the movie. He opts out of it. And Aykroyd had a 40-page treatment, and he took it to Ivan Reitman at a deli out here somewhere in L.A., and he sat down and he goes, "What do you think of the movie?" And the movie itself at that time took place in the future. There were many ghost-busting groups out there. And Ivan Reitman was like, "Well, I love the idea. It's going to be too costly." Even for back then, it was going to be too costly. It was, what if we can retool this? Let's just make them, let's talk about the Ghostbusters. And hence that Genesis was born. And within a year, they were going into release of film. And that's crazy. And when you get people like Bill Murray on board, Obviously Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, who was brought in, to help write and punch up some scenes. And he was like, well, they needed this part, Egon. And he's like, okay. He goes, why do I need to just write? I should play this part. So you get him on board. So, I mean, you get your core three people, and, right, the rest is magic. I mean, I can't see, if John Belushi were alive and he were in the movie, the complexion of this movie would have been completely different. If Eddie Murphy were in this movie, it would have been a different movie. We don't know what we would have gotten. I'm sure it would have been funny, but it wouldn't be the classic that we love today.
Yeah.
So, so many things that can change the dynamics of a script. Everything happened in this movie. But again, I say it's lightning in a bottle. Ivan Reitman directing this, they had no idea what they had. They were filming throughout New York without permits in some cases. And, they had them reading this great story from Dan Aykroyd, who said the first time they ran through New York with the Ghostbusters getup on, it was just Reitman with a camera, and people were like going, "What the hell is going on here?"
Which is, I think it's great because in the movie, obviously, it's like, the first customer, hey, can you guys come? Can you be discreet? Oh, absolutely. And then just the wailing of the Ecto car, and just and it's like, you weren't the exact opposite of that.
Exactly.
So I don't know if that was written out or like they knew that this would just be funny in general.
They were hoping. I mean, after completion, Reitman said we knew that we made a funny movie. And according to Reitman, he always says, I think Ghostbusters is a movie that finally, when you end up watching it, makes you happy. You're surprised by it all the time. It made you laugh, made you scream, it made you happy. And seeing it in 84, yes, I mean, Bill Murray was really up and coming, and we knew Ivan Reitman, but this concept of a movie and the logo, like, what is this logo? Like, it is so pop culture today that but after you see the movie, I mean, the song hit, this thing was trademarked all over the place.
Oh, absolutely.
Shirts,
Still
buttons.
see it.
You still see
it. If for me, I got Ghostbusters as a gift to a person that, they'd seen it before, but I think it was their favorite movie. And so, but it had all the concept, artwork and things like that. And like the amount of sketches it took to get to that.
Sure.
It definitely was a process.
And the thing about like the logo itself, it's so simple.
So simple.
But it's very effective, and that's, what logos should be
Right.
able to do. And it still resonates today. And I mean, everyone loves it.
And again, taking that simple concept in the early 80s, that the circle with the slash, no smoking, no this, but to put it behind
That
the
looks like
ghost.
a criminal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Cool.
you could kind of half see a criminal, and obviously it's a ghost. So
No ghosts.
Ghosts are the bad guys.
Right. So simplicity worked.
Yeah.
And nobody expected this movie to do the $200+ million that it did. It was number 2 that year in 1984, followed by a small margin. Beverly Hills Cop was number 1. That was the number 2 movie of the year. Came out, surprised everybody. Another thing as to how things change. It was the number 1 movie at the box office that week. And when you look at when it came out, which was June 8th of 1984, it opened to $13.5 million, and it was number 1 at the box office. I mean, today, if a movie's opening up number 1 at 13 million,
we're pulling out hair. We're like, what is going on?
It's a slow, it's a slow
bill.
weekend at the movies, and But think of this. Another thing, how things have changed. How many movies today open up at $13 million and end up with a total gross of $230 million? Like, that's, that's one thing. Like, movies aren't allowed to grow or given the chance to grow and become a $230 million hit. Same thing with Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills Cop opened up at $15 million. Okay? That movie does $234 million, total gross box office was. Movie opens up between $13 and $15 million today. When it's a movie like a Ghostbusters, oh, it's a flop. Done. See you later. Next week, its gross is from 13 to like 5. So, you know, it really is incredible to see how times have changed and, you know, what a movie can... Like, if you're a $13 million movie, you end up grossing $230 million, that means people kept on going to see your movie. Not just
like
for a
you,
summer.
over and over again.
Well, but again, the movie would last more than 3 to 4 weeks, 6 weeks at the box office. It would be out from June to September, October. No, like, it would be out forever. Yeah. And people would still be going to see it. And word of mouth actually meant something then, too, because that perpetuated box office. More and more people would go and see it, and it would stay alive at the theaters. You know, even when you had competition.
Because even back in that time, they didn't have the social media to help promote it. And so that was really by word of mouth and just like how popular the movie it was itself.
Absolutely. And there weren't megaplexes like there are today. So that's the other thing you have to think about, too. Today, when you know all the movies, a lot of the movies that we talk about, like Guardians of the Galaxy, great movie. I'm not saying anything against that, but wherever you go see it, Guardians of the Galaxy opening weekend at any particular megaplex is going to be anywhere from 3 to 6 screens at that one location. You know, when Ghostbusters opens up, or a Temple of Doom, or Beverly Hills Cop, it's opening up at maybe I saw it at a 6-plex, and it was on one screen at that 6-plex, and that's. That, you know, I didn't have the option. My options were a 1 o'clock show, a 3 o'clock show, a 5 o'clock show, 7, 9, and that was pretty much it. That was it when you go to the movies. Today you have a 1:15, 1:30, 1:45. Like, if, you know, movies sold out legitimately. Today, if you can't get into the opening weekend of Guardians of the Galaxy, you didn't try hard enough. Because it's open all over the place. Yeah.
Somewhere. Absolutely. So, you guys want to talk about, I know we kind of talked about the cast a little bit. I mean, you know, I'm trying to remember because so much of this is half covered in the Harold Ramis tribute. So I'm forgetting if we talked about it here or there.
Well, for a movie that it's mostly male dominated, I mean, we did have the awesome Sigourney Weaver in it, and she played a great part. Still, you know, gorgeous as ever, being in that film and being, you know, the center of everything.
Right.
It was a nice balance compared to you had this gorgeous woman with all these like 4 to 5 schmoes, which was, you know, it was a nice fun balance. It
is, and she always, when she took the roles, she always referred to her character. I forget of the in the Marx Brothers movies. There was that one gorgeous woman.
Yes, you're talking about and Groucho. He's the one always interacting with her.
Yes,
he's like, will you marry me? How much money you got? Will you marry me? Answer the first question first.
Yes, and she always likened her character to I am the straight. You know, I'm the one that's tempering these guys.
Yeah,
and the rest of them are the Marx Brothers. And, you know, but I'm going to be the straight character, which she was. And she plays a great romantic lead, opposite Bill Murray. There, you know, when you talk about opposites attracting, opposites attract in this movie. But it was great. Their chemistry together really works. And Sigourney Weaver, once again, proves what a versatile actress she is. Because she can play comedy. And she played it really well. And... you know, doing the stuff when she's possessed, it was fantastic. Turning into a dog, you know, which leads to the line.
Yeah, she's...
okay, so she's a dog. It's great stuff. But she was great. You know, she's a good foil, in a sense, or a good straight person.
Going back to the idea of a family movie, I mean, if you really break it down, there's so much sexual innuendos and stuff. The gatekeeper and the keymaster. Male, female. And
put them together.
And, I mean, Zool, or as Sigourney Weaver tells
you've got too many people inside you already.
I want you inside of me. Oh, you have too many people. I think you have 2 to 3 people inside. You seem a little crowded. It's a great line. And you're right. Again, it's not a family film, and it wasn't. It was meant to just be a broad comedy. And they didn't know, because it was also the first time when you were blending a little bit of horror, a little bit, you know, some special effects, and comedy, and they had no idea how this was going to turn out. It was like almost to me, it sort of harkened back to those Universal like Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. Except those are very comedic, but they had those horror elements. This, to me, is sort of kind of the same thing. And the zaniness, I didn't find it to be kid-like. I found it to be, like...
It's very grounded, oddly, in a nice reality. You know what I mean? So, like, whereas, not to diss the other one, but, like, if you look at an Avengers or, like, all this, there's something slightly unreal about it, and you're taking into a fantasy world. Whereas this, you're like, oh, this could happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Way.
I think it's also, just the location of New York and all the buildings that they were in. We started with the small office that Bill Murray's character was in, and then just like the authenticity of all the locations of New York. And when they go to the firehouse location, it's just like they're sliding down the almost broken fire pole. Everything just seems so genuine New York.
And then also their goals are so different than their goal is not necessarily to be superheroes in any sort of way. I mean, certainly not Bill Murray's character. As we open up with him, he's like, very good.
That seems great.
It is a star.
A couple of wavy lines. No, sorry. And to your point, New York is as much a character in this movie. And Ivan Reitman was very keen on filming it in New York. He actually took a page from the Woody Allen, book of filming a movie, in which we watch the earlier Woody Allen films. New York is a character. New York in this movie is a character, and he filmed it as such. Whether it was like on location shooting or on set shooting, he really made New York, to me, is a very integral part to Ghostbusters, because it is as much a character, and seeing the skyline and seeing the ethereal things floating around, and it grounds it in reality. Like you said, the library, in the way that, so you're going in to see a movie called Ghostbusters. The opening prologue scene takes place at that library, and you have the librarian going through, and it's a great scene, but instantly it's like it's a sort of scary moment. Not necessarily like when she screams and the white light focuses on her and she screams, and we go into our logo. All right, so what are we watching here? Are we watching a horror movie? Is this a ghost movie? And then we're introduced to our characters. Then there's the levity. Yeah. And like I said, everything in this movie clicks on all cylinders. And the lightning in a bottle, and, New York looks great, and you believe it. And, everything plays to the way that they orchestrated this movie to play out. And so they hit it.
Yeah, I mean, they get their clues at the right moments, Obviously, they're, as we mentioned with Sigourney's character, throughout, it becomes, okay, hitting on her and, let's help her out, but I'm just trying to sleep with her for the most part. Mm-hmm. Right. And then as, as we kind of, it's in terms of story, as we develop the Ghostbusters, being able to kind of understand and be good at this, then, okay, now we're prepared to introduce the real problem, and they're able to comprehend it, and now we're off to the races of Zool.
Right. And again, it's just smart screenwriting from hitting your plot points when they needed to be, when they need to come in, and developing conflict in which, your characters have to overcome something. And then in the middle of overcoming something else gets thrown at them. And, that plays out throughout the last quarter of the movie, which takes place at the suites. Yep. Everything happens from when they get there, the earthquake. I remember the first time seeing that movie. Okay. The earthquake happens, the ground opens up, and our Ghostbusters fall into the hole. I mean, they all fall in and going, whoa. I was like, what the hell? And then when they come up out of the ground, literally the audience was like, yeah. It's like, you were hoping that they couldn't be dispatched or what was going to happen, but everybody, like in New York City, like everybody was clapping. And then the movie goes on from there.
Yeah, it's just like the sequential order and everything that happens. The earthquake literally coming up from out of the ground, and then going upstairs and all those flights of stairs, and then like going up to the tower at the top. I mean, it was just so well paced throughout as well.
And then like not only just battling Zool, then like Zool, and then that becomes Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and then the again the classic, and again it's the recall. early in the movie. I forgot. Don't cross the streams. That's bad. I'm a little fuzzy on the good bad thing here, Egon. And you get that whole dialogue, and you know right from there that's bad. So when he comes up again, or we could cross the streams. Cross the streams. Wait, I thought that was bad. And you know, again, and I love that kind of a recall. You know, they didn't just dump that back there, and that's what's used to in the end save the day.
Yeah,
so fun.
Yeah. Absolutely. And just speaking of the earthquake scene, just typical the type of heroes that they really are. Bill Murray just going nuts of because he knows this could be very well doomed.
Right.
And so, you know what? All I have is just, these people are loving me right now. I'm going to enjoy every single moment of this. Because as soon as I get up there, it's not going to be fun.
Yeah. And they said that New York so embraced them, too, that, those scenes are actual, Bill Murray. Those were people who were, there to watch them. And Bill Murray was going up to people, hey, all right. And it was and again, it's that kismet. It's the magic of this movie making that really makes it shows. It just shows. And they all had a good time making it. So, yeah, everything, again, we talk about this on a lot of movies that we like. You can tell when they're having a good time. Yeah. And,
And then, there's also such a ridiculous believability, right? In Back to the Future, it's the flux capacitor. You just have to let go of any inhibition and just be like, okay, fine, that explains time travel right then and there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And, again, I feel like in today's day and age, if we were to make the first Ghostbusters, right? Let's say none of this happened, the technology would they would try to be a little bit more realistic, and sure. Obviously you talked about that, and so just the way they went the opposite way, where it just looks like what are you holding?
Right.
Yeah.
How does this even work?
Yeah.
You're basically at some points you're basically holding a Walkman trying to just find stuff. It's not even a radar. It's not sonar. It's not anything. It's just a little. Woo, woo.
Yeah, and the thing that goes, and the thing about those packs, I didn't realize this. It was cool trivia. It wasn't officially given the name Proton Pack until the second movie. So, so all this history, Proton Pack, but they never called it that in the first movie. We're having this interesting conversation because you two saw Ghostbusters 2 first. And then
no, I saw Ghostbusters, the first one, fairly early, but remember seeing the second one that was more scary than the first one to me.
It was
personally, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the second one I watched it at a really young age, and I was very impressionable, and I was still at that moment where that's very, very creepy. So
because the first one was about kids, this one was
and
true.
I think that might have been another factor too why I was so traumatized.
That's true.
But watching the second one again, I'm gonna get laughs out of it because I'm older. I know it's fake.
Yeah, and and in this one too, you had your scare factor. You had the dead zombie skeleton who comes into the cab during the song, it's magic or whatever, which is a great scene, great montage. You had Slimer, who was originally known as the Onion, who then during the filming of this movie was basically Dan Aykroyd called him John Belushi as an homage, and he became and again when you watch it the first time, here's your first, he's this green blob. And that scene where he squares off against Bill Murray and he's talking to Dan Aykroyd, he goes, yeah, he's a rotten little bastard. He goes, I think he can hear you, Ray. And when he starts charging Bill Murray, the first time you're going, oh my God, he's like, ah. And when he wakes up, but that leads to he slimed me, which became huge. Again, there were shirts that read, he slimed me, I feel so funky. And
physical contact.
He goes, the other great line in the library is somebody blows their nose and you want to save it, And you go back to the comedic stylings of all those people who were they were different. And again, to put them together, it doesn't really happen that much today. No. It's hard to do.
I think it's partly it's egos, partly it's finances. It's a slew of factors. I mean, you kind of get it maybe with the Judd Apatow cruise, but it's very few and far between.
And sometimes it's just like, let something as great as it is just be what it is, you know? It's too much of a good thing if you just add more to it. It's
right.
Like, hey, it was successful the first time, let's do more. Maybe you should just like let it be as great.
Yeah, no,
I
agree with you. And again, it was a different time where these people, like, again, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis all came from television roots. You know, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Saturday Night Live, Harold Ramis, Second City TV. So it was a different time as to how people came up. And again, when TV ruled, we couldn't wait to see Bill Murray in a movie because loved him so much in Saturday Night Live. And the same went for Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis as well. And to know that, you know, to see them in a movie, to make that leap, you wanted to support them and you hoped that it would be funny. And then, of course, when they delivered, you're like, this is great. Like, of course, they make that, and that's how they became movie stars. You know, they earned their stripes, all pun intended, in a sense, because that's where they were coming from. And they were working off of being movie lovers, being fans of comedy, and doing almost a guerrilla style type of filming, and not hoping that they were going to churn out a good movie. And they did. And this wasn't the time where today we hear the word franchise so much. And back then,
just make a good movie.
Just make a good movie and see if it builds. And, you know, we didn't get a sequel for Ghostbusters. I think it was like 5 years. It wasn't like immediately like thereafter. And the same thing with like a Beverly Hills Cop. You have a hit in your hand, and then it's like, you know what? Look how good this movie did. We can make a sequel. We can justify to make a sequel. We talked about this a little bit on November Man. They announced going into production of a sequel before the movie was released.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, but that's what happens today. Movie making was a little bit more of a risk. And not that it's not a risk today, but it was a risk. It's still a risk, but they took the risk a little more. Like, they wouldn't start announcing. They wouldn't plan for a movie like Ghostbusters to be a franchise unless it deserved the right to be a franchise. You know, and then, you know, and look what it spawned. It spawned a popular cartoon, action figures, lunchboxes, shirts, the merchandising on it alone. And then today, 30 years later, people are still going to see it on the big screen.
Absolutely. And, you know, I don't know how well versed like younger audiences are, but like still that song I don't think will ever go away.
No.
You know,
even the line itself, who are you going to call?
Who are you gonna
Just
call?
in like regular conversation, everyone's going to immediately respond Ghostbusters.
And
it's like pop culture.
Again, too, it was born of an era where MTV was in its prime. Okay? And when do you get today? Well, number one, MTV isn't what it is today. When do you get Ivan Reitman, hey, I'm going to shoot a video, and you get Bill Murray, you get all your cast to be in the video, dancing around. I mean, that doesn't happen today. It just doesn't happen. And again, it makes that, again, if you hadn't seen Ghostbusters, watching the video, well, wow, this movie looks funny. I'm going to go see Ghostbusters. And you had big directors making music videos. I mean, I believe Spielberg or Donner did The Goonies, you know, Goon Enough, and Martin Scorsese was directing like bad. You had John Landis directing Michael Jackson and Thriller. You had like directors making great videos and fun videos that would perpetuate a movie if it was around a movie. And Ghostbusters is a true sign of that.
Yeah,
it's all over and you watched it and heard it all the time. You know, we don't have that today. Like, you know, there is no MTV to back up. You know, there's no MTV videos in a sense to back up what's being played on the radio.
No, I agree. You know, you have to. You know, I'm amazed. I mean, YouTube really saved music videos.
Yeah, it did. I mean,
true. Like, I don't know where else you go to see music videos.
But when do you even know when your favorite band is coming out with a music video?
Until it's released on YouTube.
But like,
people even tease stuff on YouTube now.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, that's a whole different debate.
It is, but it's just really, you know, it's just very interesting.
Yeah.
And it is a sign of how the things changed. And again, it perpetuates a movie that can open up at $13 million to make $230. It's all these things working in pop culture. And today, there's a whole new line of Ghostbusters material. It's brand new Ghostbusters.com. There's going to be a whole new line of Lego. They're going to make Ghostbuster Legos right now. So
tied to the Lego movie. That's how we get our sequel.
There you go.
Yeah.
That could work.
Yeah.
Maybe Bill Murray will just lend his voice so long as he can do it at home. So
yeah, maybe.
And if they do that, are we going to talk about the potential of a Ghostbusters 3, which has been all over the map?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is something that we talked about with the Harold Ramis tribute, and I think with his passing, it would be one of those things that it would be resurrected just because it can be made, not because it needs to be made or wants to be made.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it would take a very special filmmaker, a very passionate person, and a lot of care to just put in the effort to making it right. And I don't think you can redo it with the same kind of cast. You can you tie them in somehow, some way, and
right.
get them a screen appearance. But
the passion is the key word, and they would have to have been passionate about the original Ghostbusters. And to realize what made that work. And, you can't imitate, but you could try your darndest to, go back to that kind of a filmmaking. We were talking about this earlier. Just maybe you don't use so much technology. Maybe you go back to more practical effects. Maybe you get people who are just funny. Funny, who could just be funny by walking on screen, and you can improvise a little bit. Not have to, I don't know, not have to be that actor. They can just bring something to the role that all of these actors did. Yeah. And again, I just think lightning in a bottle in this movie. And that's why today, 30 years ago, Sony Pictures decides to re-release the movie, because there's a fandom. When I was at Comic-Con, I can't tell you how many Ghostbusters I saw cosplay Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And some of them had awesome proton packs. I mean, they were awesome. I mean, I saw a guy, his proton pack would light up and lights would twinkle and beat, and he had the ghost scanner, yeah. And it had the thing that went up and down, and it had the LED. Yeah. Oh my God, it was like you just watch it, that's the guy spent time on that, and that's really cool. Yeah. And and again, 30 years, people still loving it.
Yeah.
What was one of the things that you liked, when you saw it for the first time? How many times have you seen the movie? Do you remember?
I can't tell you how many times, the definitive amount of times I've seen this film, but I watched it as a kid with my parents. My dad loved this type of film. This was right up his alley. And, it was just something that always stuck with me. And I remember it as a kid. I remember it as an adult, obviously. But it's just I've always known about Ghostbusters. And I've always known the song and just, everything. The humor in it, I didn't really appreciate it until I was older to actually understand all the adult comedy within it. But, it's just one of those films that kids can have fun watching it. And adults can have fun watching it. And it really doesn't, it really is a timeless type of film. Mm-hmm. We know it was set in the 80s, but still, it doesn't matter what time period you watch it in. It's still funny.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite scene?
Well, honestly, watching this film again on the big screen, I really did enjoy the Stay Puft scene, because I can understand why people thought he was so scary.
Right.
And, when you blow it up and have this seemingly, harmless guy, look all angry and on fire, I can understand why people were like, yes, that is terrifying, walking through the streets of New York. So I generally enjoy that scene a lot more than I usually did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great scene.
Yeah.
Ray's gone bye-bye, Egon. What do you got? I'm terrified beyond comprehension and belief. I got nothing.
Yeah. I always like the even in the second one, I always like the when we visit the mayor's office.
Oh yeah,
because it just it just turns into complete chaos, and you think, okay, how are they gonna get out of this? And just everyone has their moment to shine, and I don't actually I don't actually know if he has a dick. It's just what I heard.
It's like, until Dickless here pulled down the power grid and he caused the explosion. Is this true?
Yeah, but even the simple,
He
you know,
has no
throwing
tech.
politics in there is like, think of it. You could be saving the lives of like thousands of registered voters. And I'm like,
And the
that
Twitter
was
is
smart. Sold.
Yep, it is like, get him out of here.
Yep.
And again, the whole Bill Murray thing, even the cats and dogs living together. I mean, that quote, today, still people say, and cats and dogs living together, complete chaos. And they still quote that. And Bill Murray, to his credit too, he goes, yes, this man has no dick. And then they start this fight. He goes, hey, that's just what I heard. And again, that scene plays out like a Marx Brothers scene. It just goes from chaotic to more chaotic. Margaret Dumas is the woman that Sigourney Weaver thought of herself as Margaret Dumas. Mm-hmm. She thought the other Ghostbusters as the Marx Brothers, and that her job was to keep the realistic center of the film in the story. Yep. You know, from Ivan Reitman. Now, another cool piece of trivia, that John Candy was supposed to be the Rick Moranis character.
That would have been weird.
Yeah.
You know, and well, the reason why he didn't, because why that didn't happen is he had his own ideas as to how Tully should be played, and he wanted Tully to be a German man with a German accent, and he wanted him to have like Rottweiler dogs and stuff, and they're like, no, we don't see it that way.
He needed to be lamer, because I mean,
Right.
Bill Murray's character is so lame that to have a macho kind
Rick
of
Moranis,
it wouldn't have worked to me.
No, and again, Kismet. I mean, he had his ideas, they didn't agree.
Yeah.
They sign on Rick Moranis, who comes in, who also is credited for punching up the script here and there. You know, and Rick Moranis was great. Okay, who brought the dogs?
And the great thing about Rick Moranis, his character is like just another average kind of guy.
Right.
Who could easily play off as the nerdy, you know, weird neighbor.
Yeah. Who are you guys? We're the Ghostbusters. Oh, who does your taxes?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
And that was the great, you know, it's great when you kind of pick one thing to focus each character on, and that's their main thing. And they, for the most part, they did. For, you know, for Egon, it was like the folds and the funguses, and you know, he was
right.
what was
fungus?
With what was Winston's character's name?
Winston Zedmore.
Yeah. You know, it was always about that. Hey, as long as I'm getting paid, I'm good.
Right.
Or when it became bad, like, whoa, I'm not getting nearly paid enough for what I'm doing.
And there's even one point where he's like, I'm gonna get my own lawyer.
Yeah.
Like,
I was watching that scene and I was like, Winston's really not a team player.
Yeah.
Until, you know, he did have his few scenes where he was sticking up for the guys.
Right.
Like, no, I've been with these guys. So solidarity, you know.
Yeah. But and obviously Bill Murray has the sexual predator type. For Rick, it was always that. I love that accounting stuff. Like, you know, I know you do your own accounting, but you really shouldn't.
you shouldn't. You do your taxes.
And that's what makes it great, because you know, by the fact that they can roll off that many jokes about each character's whatever, they have their own thing. And you know, in terms of, you said, crossing the streams, the fact that, you know, it becomes funnier and funnier because you can recall it. It's almost like if you guys watch Big Bang Theory, Sheldon always knocks on the door, and it just happens every episode. And it's like, how the hell are they going to keep this going?
Right.
You know, and that's the brilliance behind it.
And look at, you know, you are a master of quotes. There's only one other person I know who can quote movies as good, maybe a little bit better. A friend of mine who lives in Denver, Craig, but I defy you to quote any of Dan Aykroyd's lines when he's talking about
the ectoplasm. Yeah, it's like, what are you talking?
What is he talking about? And the mere fact that it just comes out of his mouth naturally, I mean, that's like, again, the comedic genius of these gentlemen was great. And I even love, you know, Harold Ramis. We talked about this in the Remembrance podcast, but it's worth re-mentioning because, you know, when he was in Stripes and he rewatched Stripes, he's always said of himself, he goes, I looked so goofy and dorky. All I was doing was smiling because I was just happy to be there. And when I was doing Ghostbusters, he goes, I made a vow that I would never smile. And he goes, I wasn't going to look that way. And when you watch Ghostbusters knowing that, he's not smiling.
Yeah,
he's hysterical.
Very serious.
You know. I'm looking into the trap, Ray. Don't look into the trap. I'm looking into the trap. Like, stuff like that. The flowers are still standing. I mean, that's a great, again, improv stuff that you know, but it's stuff that you still quote, and you quote it like Bill Murray. You go, the flowers are still standing. He was fantastic. All his stuff with Dana is great too. And yeah, I was trying to think another cool trivia thing. We were talking about the marshmallow when they blow up, and all the shaving cream. It was actual menthol shaving cream, and there's a scene where a bunch of it dumps on our guy, on our villain.
80s Dick.
80s Dick. And it's really funny because he was like, he was gonna like do it and like, all right, how many pounds are we gonna drop on me? And they're like 75. He's like, oh great. He goes, all right, we'll do this like the science experiment. 75 pounds of feathers, 75 pounds. He goes, this is like how will this happen? Well, before they put him in there, they put a stunt double in to see how it would look and work, and 75 pounds apparently like just leveled the stunt, just flattened him out. And they're like going, he's like going, yeah, we could do a little bit less. So they lessened it, but that's him screaming.
Yeah.
When all that comes down on him. And then of course it's really funny that everybody else comes out with the shaving cream except for Bill Murray. There's like a little tuft of it in his hair. I say he makes up for it because he got slimed.
That is true.
Right?
There you go. Any last thoughts before we wrap up this, for me, a great discussion. Hopefully you guys at home also enjoy. Let us know what you guys found enjoyable about this movie. I know there's so many, but you know what? Maybe write down like top 5.
Yeah, and what did we miss that we didn't cover?
Oh, so many things. I mean, 30 years of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Again, it's just another fun film you can always watch with your family, by yourself, popcorn movie. You really can just enjoy it at any certain time of your life. And, like, I would be really upset if they remade this film because it's so generally already funny and well done the first time and so simple. The simplicity of it is what I really enjoyed. And that, it's just a fun movie.
Yeah, and I think as much as, like, we're all film fans here. So as much as that we appreciate the filming of great movies like a Casablanca or Gone with the Wind or Lawrence of Arabia, which, you're not going to repeat that. You can't redo that today. Using the styles of direction that they used and the people and the extras. Ghostbusters is the same way. It's a way of filmmaking. When they were doing it, they didn't exactly know what they had. And I love them for it, and it made for great entertainment. The mere fact that it lasts 30 years and we can talk about it and do a podcast because it's relevant today. I'm waiting for this new, there is a new Blu-ray coming out that's going to have new extras, new conversations about this, which I can't wait to see. And I think this release was in part to help promote this Blu-ray release, which comes out in about a week. I can't wait to revisit it, watch new commentaries, and hear what some of the people have to say 30 years later that they got. And I'm sure 50 years, people will be still, commemorating this movie.
Absolutely.
So
on that note, we would like to thank you guys for tuning in yet again to another Anatomy of a Movie. Follow us on Movie Anatomy on Twitter, anatomyofmovie.com. There we go. Such a catchy song.
It is.
Follow D Movies.
At DMovies1701.
That's Dimitri's Twitter. Serafini TV for Marissa.
That's correct.
And obviously I already said Anatomy of Movies. But let us know your thoughts. We did about 50 minutes today on this, but like I said, there's so much to talk about. Whether it's fun facts you want to discuss, we'll talk with you. Don't be shy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I guess that Blu-ray release is also going to include this music video.
There you go.
Which will be cool. That's worth the price. That's worth
the price of admission on that one.
Absolutely.
All right, we've got a couple movies coming up. We'll keep the schedule posted on anatomymovie.com. We just did When the Game Stands Tall. Before that, we did Sin City and November Man. And
we've had some good interviews, some great guests.
Yeah, and we're gonna keep it coming. A lot of good stuff in the pipe work. A lot of good stuff in the whatever past pipe work. Can you say that? Is that?
Well,
it's all the same pipeline.
It's
See you guys next time.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.